Have you ever found yourself staring at your aquarium, frustrated with persistent algae taking over? Or maybe you've noticed your fish constantly seeking shelter. Does your tank, no matter how much you've invested in it, still seem incomplete? There's a solution, one that Mother Nature herself offers, an element that can transform your aquatic world from mere containment to a thriving ecosystem. Floating plants, often found gracing the surfaces of calm ponds, slow rivers, and serene lakes, have been a part of aquatic ecosystems for millennia. They play a vital role in nature, and as we'll discover today, they can play an equally crucial role in our home aquariums. When we think of an aquarium, we often picture the underwater scene, but there's an entire surface area that's sometimes overlooked. That's where floating plants come in. Another thing that is often overlooked is the subscribe button. I have lots of projects in the pipeline, and it would mean the world if you subscribed and liked this video. It will help the YouTube gods know that this video is somewhat useful. Anyway, back to the video. Adding floating plants is like putting a green roof on your aquarium. It adds color and texture. These plants move with the flow of the water, creating a dynamic and ever-changing display on the water's surface. But it's not just about how they move. The green of floating plants contrasts beautifully with the blue or clear water. This pop of color can make your fish stand out more and add depth to your tank's overall look. Have you ever noticed how a tree or an umbrella can change the feel of a place by providing shade? Floating plants do the same for your fish. They create natural shaded spots, giving your fish areas to relax away from constant light. And for those of you who like a more natural look, floating plants can make your aquarium resemble a pond or a calm part of a river, bringing a bit of the wild indoors. Now, beyond just looking good, floating plants are like the superheroes of the aquatic world. They do a lot more beneath the surface, and on it, than meets the eye. First up, oxygenation. Just like trees on land, floating plants photosynthesize. This means they take in carbon dioxide and release oxygen. This boost of oxygen is great for your fish, helping them breathe easier and stay lively. But the magic doesn't stop there. Ever heard of nitrates? They're a kind of nutrient that can build up in your tank. Imagine a tank out of control, water clouded with excessive algae, your fish struggling, the environment deteriorating. This isn't just a nightmare scenario, it's what can happen when a tank's balance is lost. Too much light, and an overload of nutrients can be the culprits. They provide a breeding ground for unwanted algae blooms that choke the life out of your aquarium. And believe me, once these blooms take over, getting things back to normal can be a real challenge. But here's the good news. Floating plants, by simply being there, dial down the light intensity and consume those excess nutrients. This natural intervention keeps the algae in check and restores balance. Now, while we've touched upon the wonders these floating plants do for our tank's environment, let's not forget the main stars of our aquariums, our fish and invertebrates. Imagine being out in the open with no place to hide or take shelter. That's how many fish feel in an open tank. But with floating plants, we provide them with a sanctuary. The intertwining roots and overhanging leaves offer natural hiding spots, allowing smaller fish and fry to seek refuge from larger or more aggressive tank mates. But it's not just about hiding. For many species, these plants are essential for breeding. Some fish use the underbelly of floating plants as a safe spot to lay their eggs, while others might find the plant's roots an ideal nursery for their fry. And for our tiny tank inhabitants, like shrimp and other invertebrates, the benefits multiply. The roots of floating plants become a hub of activity, attracting microorganisms that these creatures love to feed on. It's like having a constant fresh buffet right at their doorstep. Aquascaping is an art. It's where our imagination meets the natural world, and floating plants can be the paintbrushes that bring our visions to life. Firstly, think of scale and perspective. In traditional landscape painting, artists often use layers to create depth: foreground, middle ground, and background. In aquascaping, floating plants can serve as our sky or canopy, introducing a whole new layer above the waterline. Then there's texture. Just like terrestrial plants have varied leaf shapes and sizes, so do floating ones. From the fine, lace-like patterns of duckweed to the broader rosette shape of water lettuce, these plants offer an array of textures to play with. Color is another element to consider. While most floating plants come in shades of green, they can vary from bright lime greens to deeper, almost olive hues. Some even have hints of red or purple beneath their leaves. For those who love challenges, Floating plants can be used in more advanced aquascaping techniques. For instance, you can create islands or patches using barriers, leading to distinct visual areas on the water's surface. This is particularly striking in open-top tanks or paludariums. With the myriad of benefits floating plants offer, it's no surprise there's a rich variety to choose from. Let's explore some of the most popular ones, each with its own unique characteristics. Starting with one of the smallest, duckweed is like the confetti of the aquatic world. Each tiny green leaf floats effortlessly on the water's surface, multiplying quickly. It's a favourite for many because of its simplicity and ease of growth. But a word of caution: due to its rapid growth, it can cover a tank surface swiftly, so regular maintenance is key. Secondly, water lettuce with its rosette-shaped leaves is reminiscent of a floating green rose. It's not just beautiful, the long, feathery roots of water lettuce provide an excellent refuge for small fish and invertebrates. This plant prefers still or slow-moving water and can be a centerpiece in a calm tank setup. Among the stars of the floating plant world, frogbit shines particularly bright. Originating from Central and South America, this plant has made its way into aquariums worldwide, and for good reasons. At first glance, frogbit might remind you of miniature lily pads. Its leaves are smooth, round, and often slightly curved downwards at the edges, creating a gentle bowl shape. This structure allows the plant to stay buoyant and effectively capture light. Speaking of light, frogbit isn't too picky. It can thrive in both low and high light conditions, making it adaptable to various tank setups. However, in brighter settings, you'll notice its leaves becoming thicker and its green hue deepening. Frogbit's growth rate is moderate to fast depending on the conditions. This growth can be a blessing as it helps in nutrient absorption, but it's essential to keep an eye on it. In spot number 4 is Salvinia. Salvinia is truly one of the aquatic world's unique gems. Belonging to a genus of around 12 recognized species, these plants have carved a niche for themselves in the hearts of aquascapers and aquarium hobbyists alike. The leaves have a distinct velvety texture, almost as if they've been dusted with a layer of fine green velvet. This texture isn't just for show, it's a remarkable adaptation. The tiny hairs on the leaves repel water, ensuring that the plant remains buoyant and dry. In fact, if you were to sprinkle water on Salvinia, you'd see droplets forming, glinting like tiny jewels. Salvinia is relatively low maintenance, but there's one thing it's not particularly fond of: strong water currents. If the water flow is too powerful, the delicate leaves can get submerged and damaged. And lastly, red root floaters. This South American native brings not only functionality to your aquarium, but also an aesthetic that's hard to overlook. At first glance, the name gives away its most distinguishing feature. The roots of this plant are a captivating shade of red, contrasting beautifully with the green of its leaves. The leaves themselves are small, round, and have a slightly waxy appearance. This waxy coating helps the plant repel water, ensuring it stays buoyant. Under optimal lighting conditions, the leaves can take on a reddish hue, perfectly complementing the red of the roots and adding a splash of colour to the water's surface. Given the right conditions, red root floaters can multiply quickly, forming dense colonies on the water's surface. This rapid growth is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it's excellent for nutrient absorption, helping to keep the water clean, and can help cycle a tank much faster. On the other hand, if left unchecked, they can cover the surface entirely, blocking light for the plants below. Regular monitoring and pruning can help maintain a balance. We've waded through the waters of floating plants today, and I hope we've made a splash in your aquatic knowledge. Do you want to dive deeper with me? Hit that subscribe button. It's the best way to stay connected for our future videos and big projects. Thanks again for watching.